12 icons who are unrecognizable, 2026. They were the faces that defined perfect. The jawlines that launched 1,000 movies and the beauty standards we all tried and failed to reach. But in 2026, Hollywood's elite aren't just aging, they're transforming into people we don't even recognize. From the Godfather legend, who says he looks like a white fire hydrant, to the 90s bombshell, whose new face just broke the internet. Today, we're looking at the gorgeous actors who are now, well, let's just say, hard to look at. And number one, you won't believe it's the same person because even the scientists are confused. Al Pacino, the white fire hydrant. Let's start with Michael Corleone himself because Al Pacino didn't just age, he leaned into the chaos. Al Pacino is the man who gave us The Godfather, Scarface, and enough shouting to power a small electric grid. In the 70s, Al was the gold standard for dark and brooding. He had that chiseled look that made him the undisputed king of the silver screen. Fast forward to 2026 and Al is 85. He's not just a legend, he's a mood. Recently, photos of Al wandering through LA went viral for all the wrong reasons. Fans were calling him untidy and messy. But Al, being the absolute king he is, beat them to the punch. While promoting his recent memoir, he joked that when people see him now, they see a white fire hydrant. You've got to love a guy who can roast himself before the internet can. But beneath the gray hair and the eccentric scarves, there's been a lot of whispering. Surgeons have been analyzing his eyelids for years, suggesting a blepharoplasty or a quick tuck to keep those famous eyes from disappearing entirely. Al hasn't confirmed a thing, but looking at his face is like reading a map of Hollywood history. It's wrinkled, it's weathered, and it's definitely seen some things. Al is letting it all hang out, but our next legend has a strict no-tuck policy. He's the man with the most famous smile in history, but these days, that smile looks a little different. Jack Nicholson, the natural disaster. Jack Nicholson is the only man who can wear sunglasses indoors and still look like the smartest person in the room. In his prime, Jack was the wild man with the shark-like grin. But Jack made a choice that is rare in Hollywood. He decided to actually age. He's gone on record saying he's had no plugs and no tucks. And you know what? We believe him. These days, Jack's face is a masterclass in gravity. We're talking deep wrinkles, a sagging jawline, and a hairline that's retreated further than a shy kid at a school dance. While he's mostly retired from the spotlight, the occasional courtside photo at a Lakers game sends social media into a tailspin. Fans are so used to the plastic look of Hollywood that seeing a man with actual skin texture feels like seeing a unicorn. Jack doesn't care about your fillers, and he's 88, he's comfortable, and he's earned every single one of those lines. But hey, if you think Jack is a shock, wait until you see the sexiest man alive who turned into a mountain man overnight. Speaking of sexiest men alive, our next actor was once the ultimate heartthrob. Now, you'd probably cross the street if you saw him coming. Nick Nolte, the rugged recluse. In 1992, Nick Nolte was the peak of male beauty. People magazine officially crowned him the sexiest man alive. He had the blonde hair, the blue eyes, and that rugged charm that made him a superstar. But Nick Nolte's then and now is probably the most jarring transformation on this entire list. Today, Nick looks less like a leading man and more like a guy who's been living in the woods for a decade without a comb. We're talking a massive, unruly gray beard, weathered skin that looks like a vintage leather jacket, and a wardrobe that consists mostly of oversized pajamas. He's become the poster child for not giving a single. Damn. While his peers are freezing their faces with Botox, Nick is out here looking like he's ready to play a Viking king or a very grumpy Santa Claus. It's a complete 180 from his sexiest man days, showing that time doesn't just change you, it can completely rewrite your character design. Nick Nolte gave up on the mirror, but our next actress, she might be spending a little too much time in front of it. Her latest refresh has the internet asking if she's actually a shapeshifter. Demi Moore, the reverse aging mystery. Demi Moore has always been a goddess. From Ghost to G.I. Jane, she was the epitome of 90s perfection. But for Demi, aging hasn't been a straight line. It's been a roller coaster. In 2021, she walked a runway and the internet literally stopped. Her face looked different, sharper. Her cheeks were doing things cheeks aren't supposed to do, but fast forward to late 2025 and 2026 and Demi has undergone a reversal. Experts believe she's dissolved her fillers to find a more natural look. At 63, she looks incredible. maybe too incredible. Surgeons are calling it the Benjamin Button effect. She claims it's just a healthy lifestyle and a good mindset, but the rumor mill is spinning with talk of a high-end brow lift and subtle tweakments. Whether she's using magic or a really good surgeon, Demi proves that in Hollywood, your face is never actually finished. It's just under construction. Demi is fighting for her youth. But our next legend, he didn't just lose his looks, he lost his entire silhouette. The man who was once the streetcar named Desire ended up a shadow of his former self. Marlon Brando. The heavy burden. Marlon Brando was the original bad boy. In the 50s, he was pure electricity. The t-shirt, the brooding eyes, the absolute peak of masculinity. But Brando's story is a cautionary tale about what happens when you stop caring about the leading man image. As he got older, Brando's relationship with food became more famous than his acting. By the time he was filming The Island of Dr. Moreau, he had ballooned to over 300 pounds. His face, once defined by a jawline that could cut glass, became unrecognizable under soft, sagging skin. He didn't turn to plastic surgery. He turned to isolation. He spent his final years as a recluse on his private island, a tragic contrast to the man who once made the world faint with a single look. Brando chose to hide from the world when his reflection changed. Our next legend did the exact opposite. He didn't just stay in the spotlight. He dared the sun to blink first. But as he approaches a full century on this planet, the man with no name is starting to look a lot like a man with a very expensive secret. Is it just clean living? Or has the ultimate cowboy finally met a surgeon he couldn't outdraw? Clint Eastwood, the 95-year-old mystery. If Marlon Brando was a lesson in letting go, Clint Eastwood is a lesson in holding on, maybe a little too tight. At 95, the man is still working, but his face tells a story the movies try to hide. Clint Eastwood is essentially a living monument. The man has been a tough guy since before your parents were born. But in 2026, the dirty, hairy grit has been replaced by a quiet, fragile reality. At 95, Clint looks less like a cowboy and more like a ghost of the Old West. Fans have been sounding the alarm lately, noting that he's become almost unrecognizable in rare public sightings. We're talking deep, paper-thin wrinkles and a frame that looks like it could be knocked over by a strong breeze. But here's the kicker. Rumor has it Clint hasn't been entirely natural. For years, Hollywood insiders have whispered about minor eyelid surgeries and skin treatments meant to keep that intense gaze from being buried under sagging skin. But when you're nearly a century old, even the best surgeons can't stop the clock. He's a longevity freak who eats organic and meditates twice a day, but the man we see today is a stark reminder that even the toughest outlaws eventually have to face the sunset. Clint is aging in silence, but our next star is doing it in the loudest, most confusing way possible. From Taxi Driver to New York's grumpy grandpa, he's officially stopped trying to look like a movie star. Robert De Niro, the reluctant icon. Robert De Niro used to be the most intense man in Hollywood. If he looked at you a certain way in Taxi Driver, you felt it in your soul. But these days, Bobby D looks more like the guy complaining about the price of eggs at the bodega. In late 2025 and early 2026, De Niro has been spotted out and about in New York looking, well, like a normal 82-year-old. Longer gray hair, glasses, and a wardrobe that screams, "I have 7 kids and I'm tired." He's been surprisingly candid about it too, telling interviewers he has no choice but to embrace the collapse. Unlike the Godfather co-star Al Pacino, De Niro hasn't leaned into the eccentric white fire hydrant look. He's just a regular guy. For fans who want him to be the sharp-suited mobster forever, it's a hard pill to swallow. He's proof that you can win 2 Oscars and still end up looking like everyone's favorite, slightly confused grandfather. De Niro is aging gracefully into regular guy territory. But our next actress found out the hard way that fixing your face can be a death sentence. Her 2026 story is a heartbreaking final chapter. Sally Kirkland, The Final Goodbye. This is the one that really hurts. Sally Kirkland wasn't just a gorgeous Oscar nominee, she was a cautionary tale for the entire industry. In the late 80s, she was a bombshell, but she made a decision for a movie role that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She got cosmetic implants. It wasn't just a bad look, it was toxic. The implants nearly killed her, leading to a decade of pain and a desperate removal surgery in 1998. She became a warrior for others, starting an institute to warn women about the dangers of chasing perfection through plastic. Sadly, Sally passed away in late 2025 at the age of 84. Her final years were spent in hospice, fighting through the physical toll of her past surgeries and a series of devastating falls. She left us with a message that resonates more now than ever. Your value isn't in your reflection. She was a beautiful soul who found out too late that Hollywood's standards are a trap. Sally's story is a tragedy, but our next actor is a literal mystery. 1 minute, she was the hottest woman in the world, and the next, she was a quiet teacher in North Carolina who refuses to dye her hair. Why did she vanish? Kelly McGillis, the refusal to play the game. In 1986, every man on Earth was in love with Charlie from Top Gun. Kelly McGillis was the it girl, the tall, blonde, sophisticated beauty who could keep up with Tom Cruise. But when the sequel Top Gun: Maverick came around, Kelly was nowhere to be found. Why? Because she committed the ultimate Hollywood sin. She aged naturally. Kelly is now 68, and she looks like a 68-year-old woman. She's got short gray hair, she's gained some weight, and she lives a quiet life teaching acting. She famously said she wasn't invited back for the sequel because she's old and fat and looks age-appropriate. It was a brutal piece of honesty that exposed the industry's double standards. Kelly is hard to look at for Hollywood executives because she refuses to freeze her face in 1986. She's secure in her skin, even if the cameras aren't. And honestly, that's more badass than any fighter jet. Kelly walked away from the spotlight, but our next star, he moved to Russia, became friends with Putin, and grew a goatee that has the internet asking, is that actually Steven Seagal? Steven Seagal, the Kremlin's action hero. Steven Seagal was the ponytail-wearing, bone-breaking king of the 90s. Above the law, under siege. He was a lean, mean Aikido machine, but today, Steven Seagal looks like a character from a movie about a guy who ate Steven Seagal. At 73, Steven has become a permanent fixture in Moscow. He's a Russian citizen, a special representative for the Kremlin, and a frequent guest at military parades. But it's the physical change that really stops people in their tracks. He's significantly heavier, his hair is an impossibly dark shade of jet black, and he's usually rocking a silk kimono-style robe. He's gone from a Hollywood action icon to a controversial political figure with a look that can only be described as Bond villain chic. Whether it's the bizarre hair transplants or the lifestyle shift, Seagal is the ultimate example of how a then and now can go in a direction nobody saw coming. From the icons who aged with grace to the legends who fought the mirror and lost, Hollywood is a graveyard of perfect faces. But maybe the lesson isn't about the wrinkles. It's about the people underneath them who stayed true to themselves. If these transformations shocked you, do us a favor. Hit that like button so the algorithm knows you appreciate the real stories. We're working on a deep dive into the heartbreaking final chapters of Hollywood's biggest stars next. So make sure you're subscribed and the bell is on so you don't miss it. Which of these stars did you recognize the least? Sound off in the comments. I'm replying to the best ones right now. Thanks for watching The Long Goodbye. We'll see you in the next one.